Alright guys, we're back here with more fantasy baseball content here. I'm going to re-rank all of the shortstops in the league in a tier list. But first, thanks to everyone out there supporting the channel. We're really close to the 6,000 subscriber goal for the end of May. So if you guys are watching this video, enjoying the channel, and not subscribed, and want to get notifications every time I drop a new video, please go down there and click that big black subscribe button. Also, please drop this video a like. But now let's get into it. I've been kind of slowly working some re-ranks into this channel because I did a whole bunch of rankings during draft season back in March. I did starting pitchers last week. This week I'm going to do shortstops. Whatever position you guys want next, let me know down in the comments. I'll do that one next week. But I really wanted to do shortstops as the first hitter re-rankings because one, it's the deepest position in fantasy baseball. Two, it has some of the best players in the league. Three, it has some of the most interesting players and breakout stars so far this season. So I think it was about time to re-rank this position. And we have to start with tier one, same as the offseason, same as preseason, probably will be the same through the end of the season. No one's really close to this player right now in terms of shortstops in the league is Bobby Witt Jr. of the Kansas City Royals. He just does everything so well. Contact, power, speed, defense. Like there's no hole in Bobby Witt Jr.'s game. He's so good at attacking the right pitches in the strike zone. He'll never let a good pitch go by him. And when there's a good pitch that pitcher throws to him, he does an amazing job of attacking it. You're looking at another 300, 30-30 season from Bobby Witt Jr. And that's probably the floor of his production. No other shortstop in the league can match that right now. Then we move on to tier two. We got Mookie Betts, Gunnar Henderson, and Francisco Lindor. And these guys are all very good players. They're all super dudes, like guys who are like borderline first round picks in fantasy baseball still and performing at least close to that value so far through a month and a half of the season, but also some teeny tiny itty bitty concerns for each one. Just starting with Betts, it's very funny to look back to late March after he had that horrible sickness that he said dropped 20 pounds before draft season. And there was some moderately widespread panic about Betts again towards the end of March about how productive he was going to be while being about 20 pounds lighter. He silenced most of those doubts, having an amazing season, very productive atop the Dodgers lineup, moving on to the dirt and actually playing a pretty good defensive shortstop. But there are teeny tiny concerns with Betts again in his quality of contact metrics. The bat speed's low, but it kind of always has been low. He's not hitting the ball as hard. He's not barreling the ball up as much. He's still Mookie Betts. He still projects incredibly well. He's still hitting again atop the Dodgers' incredibly talented lineup. I don't want you guys to get too wrapped up in the rankings inside of any of these tiers. The reason I like to do my rankings in tier lists is because all the guys in these tiers have similarities to one another. Similar floor, similar ceiling, similar just value proposition. So again, not getting too tied up in the rankings, but as of right now, I do think Mookie Betts is the second best shortstop eligible player in fantasy. And a big reason for that is that multi-positional eligibility, which not a lot of other shortstops have, but no issues with Betts whatsoever. Then we get to Gunnar Henderson, who didn't start this season on time with a little oblique pull, came back after a few weeks. And I do think right now his production is being pulled down by how much of a mess the Orioles are. My bold prediction was they wouldn't be a playoff team. That's looking pretty good right now. As of recording this video right now, they're 16-32 and in last place in the AL East. It would take a pretty miraculous turnaround for them to be a playoff team. Still very talented. Wouldn't totally count that out, but I do think that's a reason that right now we're seeing just totally solid production from Henderson rather than the MVP type of production we saw from him last year. Also, with that weirdness, we're seeing some skill decline from Henderson. He's swinging more pitches out of the strike zone. He's not walking as much. He's striking out more often. He's making less contact on pitches inside the strike zone, and he's swinging and missing more often than he ever has since becoming a major league player. Those are definitely worrisome signs, but again, I really think a lot of this just comes back to the chaos with this Orioles team. A guy like Henderson who knows he's the star, who knows he's the premier hitter in that lineup, probably trying to do a little bit too much, probably squeezing the bat a little too tightly because of how horrible things look around him. Because again, he's still swinging very hard, his quality of contact is still very good, and all of those plate discipline concerns I've talked about with him, those were the things that made him such an exciting player as he came up from the minors and became a breakout star last season. So I'm choosing to trust Henderson, not trying to take this kind of slow start too seriously. And then we have Francisco Lindor and the Mets. Still just as solid as they come. It's been a rough few weeks for Lindor, as it has been for the entire Mets offense after Lindor and a good chunk of the Mets offense was blazing hot through the middle of April to the beginning of May. But even still, with a cold stretch, he's on pace for a 30 homer, 30 steal season with an 800 OPS. Few players in the league are more rock solid than Lindor. Now moving on to tier three. This is where this starts to get pretty fun. We have Elly De La Cruz, Trey Turner, O'Neal Cruz, and CJ Abrams. Now this tier is fun because you have kind of a fracture from the guys who are very, very solid. In this tier, you have some slightly disappointing players, some pretty encouraging players. It's really fun. Let's break it all down. First up I have in this tier is Elly De La Cruz. Probably one of the most disappointing players in all of fantasy baseball this season, especially from my perspective, because I kind of saw Elly De La Cruz as working 1 year behind the Bobby Witt Jr. path, where we saw him be pretty good when he came up as a rookie in 2023, take huge steps forward in 2024, and I thought this was the season we saw him ascend to an MVP caliber player. But none of that's happened. He still has a lot of the same plate discipline issues and is not getting to the same degree of power he got to last season, which to me is concerning because that was one of his big calling cards. It's also really fun to analyze a player like Elly because he's a switch hitter, so we get two sides of the plate to analyze. And I specifically want to look at him as a right-handed batter right now because he's been really, really horrific from that side of the plate this season with barely a 280 on base percentage and a 630 OPS. That's not very good. A switch hitter will hit righty much less often than they'll hit lefty because you're going to face more right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers. But I do think it's worth monitoring what Elly's doing from the right side because he's actually made some pretty genuine swing changes there. He shortened up his swing a lot, but he's also swinging harder. So maybe that tells me he's being a little bit out of control on that side of the plate. That's why the quality of contact is going down. But at the same time, his bat speed is much more consistent on that right side of the plate compared to last season. So I don't really know. Also for Elly, on both sides of the plate, he's much more open. When he came up to the major leagues, he was kind of just straight up as a hitter. Then last year, he opened up a little bit. Now this season, he's way, way, way open. When you open up like that, it should allow you to see pitches better. But someone like Elly right now, I do think he's a little bit out of control when he swings because we're seeing, again, the quality of contact go down. He's not hitting the sweet spot in the bat as often. He's not getting anywhere close to the same degree of power. He's not pulling as many fly balls. He's also not being as aggressive with pitches in the heart of the strike zone. So maybe him being open is making him think too much. Maybe this all winds up to being a big giant nothing. Maybe he's about to go on a supernova hot streak like Elly has in the past. But as of right now, he's a tier 3 shortstop just because there are some more slight concerns than there were heading into the season. But also at the same time, I do these rankings mainly for people who play in points-based leagues. If you're playing in a categories or rotisserie-based leagues, Elly is still near the top of the league in stolen bases. He will always be near the top of the league in stolen bases. And if you're playing in one of those leagues, because of that stolen base value, that added stolen base value, he's probably still a tier 2 player. But for a points league, he's dropped down below those guys like Gunnar, Mookie, and Lindor. Next in this tier, we have Trey Turner on the Phillies. And I just talked about Trey Turner in my sell high video because I don't think we're ever going to see that same MVP caliber upside from Turner ever again. He's hitting around 300 right now. He's stealing a bunch of bases. That's really good. But it does seem like he's shortened up his swing in an effort to be a more contact-oriented hitter. And that's because his power just has not been the same over the last few seasons. He's gone from a 900 OPS guy to an 800 OPS guy. Still a very good player. But he hasn't hit the ball above 111 miles per hour in a few years. And I really think that we're getting that. I think right now that's the change of that 30 homer upside to 22 homer upside from Trey Turner that we're kind of seeing unfold as he's going into his 30s. Again, he's still a very good player, and I do think a lot of this is intentional because he's really shortened up his swing and seemingly given away some bat speed and some power potential for more contact, as you guys can see in his swing speed distribution here. But still a very good player, still going to hit for a pretty high average, will still be productive atop the Phillies lineup. Then we have Oneil Cruz and the Pirates, one of my favorites, and in the shortstop tier list because he's eligible as shortstop despite being a center fielder this year. And also similar to Elly De La Cruz, Oneil Cruz right now leads the league in stolen bases. So despite some chinks in the armor, some approach issues that Oneil Cruz still has and will probably always have, he definitely jumps up probably an entire tier if you guys are playing in rotisserie or categories-based leagues. But for points leagues, there's been a lot of good and a good bit of bad for Oneil Cruz this season. I'll explain why. It's clear that he's being pitched more carefully by opposing pitchers because, one, he is the one shining light in a Pirates lineup that's been absolutely one of the worst in baseball this season, and I think he is finally getting more respect around the league that he deserves for being a premier player. So with being pitched more carefully, he's swinging less because he's seeing fewer pitches in the strike zone. That means he's also chasing fewer pitches out of the strike zone. That's a good thing for Oneil Cruz. Expanding the strike zone less often will give him more opportunities to access his incredible raw power on pitches in the zone. Maybe he should be more aggressive because it seems like he is waiting back a lot. His swing rate is very, very low, under 40%, and his quality of contact is so good that maybe once in a while, if he did take a few more hacks, he could access that power more. But he's doubled his walk rate so far this season from about 8% to 16%, which is kind of an unprecedented rise in a walk rate. And it does feel like he is much more under control in the box this season. Baseball Savant's come out with a lot of new cool bat tracking stuff, including this week, where now we have swing path and attack angle data that we can dive into, and I plan to dive into that data more. But just on a first glance, because that data just came out, Oneil Cruz is using the sweet spot of his bat more and is more often hitting the ball at an ideal attack angle. That's really good, and that tells me that he is someone who, again, is more under control and still has that top of the line bat speed. But at the same time, all of the swing and miss that's always been a problem with Oneil Cruz is still there, and it's really tearing down his batting average. Despite the genuine strides forward, almost no hitter in the league both swings and misses more often and strikes out more often right now than Oneil Cruz. So it does look like he is on track to have a 30 homer, 40 stolen base season, and that's amazing. That's probably going to be well better than the player you drafted him to be coming into this season. But that will come with about a 220, 230, maybe even he gets it up to a 240 batting average with a near 30% strikeout rate. That will be a drain on both your points and your rotisserie leagues. And until he can find a way to improve that contact rate, he will still be falling well below his ceiling as a player. Then we have CJ Abrams on the Nationals, who's quietly having a big-time breakout season right now, on a 30-homer pace with some of the best power metrics of his entire career. And I think that's because he's just committed to turning himself into a power hitter. He's made some pretty cool swing and setup changes this season. when his feet are about 6 inches further apart in the box, having him crouch a little bit lower, having a little bit lower center of gravity, a little bit more balance, and he's lengthening the swing. Again, that's something that will give you more power, having a longer swing, generating more bat speed as your bat comes through the zone. And that's working because, again, he is finding more power. He's hit a new max exit velocity of 112.7 miles per hour this year. Last year, he never hit the ball harder than 110 miles an hour. He's lifting the ball more. He's pulling significantly more of his fly balls. Has one of the highest pulled fly ball rates in the entire league. So again, now there's a higher power ceiling for someone who's always been really good at accessing that power because he's very good at pulling his fly balls. Now he's jumped up from doing that at a very good rate to one of the best rates in all of baseball. And again, bottom line, he's just hitting the ball harder more consistently. I think a big reason he's able to do this is because he's covering the plate much, much better than he ever has in his major league career. Again, he has that wider stance, probably a little bit more balance in the box, but check out his barrel rates by zone from last year to this year. It's really night and day how much better he is at barreling up pitches in different parts of the strike zone compared to last season. And I think a big reason for that is because he's able to be more selective now inside the strike zone and avoid pitches that used to be problem spots for him, mostly in the inside part of the plate. And overall, the big change for Abrams is that he's doing more damage in the shadow of the strike zone. The shadow of the strike zone are these areas on the edges where pitches can be called a strike or can be called a ball, just kind of depending on what the umpire's feeling that day. And while Abrams' swing rate in the shadow of the zone is not that different from last season, so for this season, swinging 59% of the time against pitches in the shadow, last season was 55% of the time. Again, not very different. His quality of contact is way better. Last season, he had a 263 expected WOBA on pitches, again, in the shadow. The league average on pitches in the shadow was a 261 expected WOBA. Very similar. Basically a league average player in the shadow. Totally okay. But so far this season, in a pretty small sample, still a long way to go, that xWOBA has jumped up to 388. That is the 6th highest of all players in the league who have seen at least 200 pitches in the shadow of the zone. And that leaderboard has guys like Pete Alonso and Shohei Ohtani on it. What CJ Abrams is doing right now on pitches in the shadow of the zone, not great spots to access your power, but he's accessing that power on them, is again up there with some of the best hitters in the league. The physical tools were always there for Abrams. He really had to get his mentals up after the disappointing way last season ended, but it seems like everything is coalescing for him right now. And I think that he's being a little bit underrated in the public lexicon. I think we could have a true all-star season coming from CJ Abrams. Okay, next we have a very interesting tier of 3 pretty different players. We have Corey Seager, Zach Neto, and Dansby Swanson. All 3 of these players are very different for very different reasons. I think anyone in this list could move up or down a tier over the next month, but as of right now, I'm clustering them together. Starting with Seager, in these positional rankings, I will rank injured position players, whereas when I did my starting pitcher rankings, I didn't rank injured pitchers, because I think injured position players, things are much more straightforward than injured pitchers who don't have a timeline yet. But for Seager, things are not very straightforward. He's already been on the injured list twice this season with a hamstring strain, including right now, and there's still no timetable for his return. On talent alone, he probably would be a tier up. He definitely should be a tier up, but as of right now, because it seems like one of these classic injury-riddled Seager seasons, I can't rank him that highly. And then we have Zach Neto, who might be the biggest breakout of the whole season so far. As of recording this video, he's got 7 homers and 7 steals in just about a month's worth of play since returning from the injured list. That puts him at close to a 40-40 pace for a complete season as a 24-year-old who barely played in the minor leagues. There was a lot of concern with Neto coming into the season because of a scary shoulder injury that the Angels really never said much about, so we didn't know when he'd come back or how he'd play when he returned. But he has hit the ground running in a meaningful way. And I do think it's legit because everything under the hood for Neto says that he is improving a lot. His swing decisions are miles better than they were last year. He's more selective. He's chasing fewer pitches outside of the zone while still attacking plenty of pitches in it. He's hitting the ball much, much harder. He's pulling his fly balls more often. And he's another guy who seemingly has made some pretty big changes at his setup in the box. Where just like Abrams, he's widened his stance. And this is also the second consecutive year where he's widened his stance. His feet are about 10 inches wider from 2 years ago compared to so far this season. It's a big adjustment. And on top of that, he's moved further up in the box. And his contact point is much further up than it was last season. That's a telltale sign of a guy who's able to pull his balls with more authority. And that's what Neto is doing right now compared to last season, when he was already a very productive power hitter. The speed's always going to be there. He's a monster. He's hitting leadoff in the Angels lineup. I know it's a bad lineup, but hitting leadoff still helps your production a lot. If he can do this for one more month, he's easily jumping to the next tier. And then lastly is Dansby Swanson, old reliable, someone I advocated for heavily on my shortstop tier list ahead of the season. I have him rostered on tons of my teams. I'm really happy I do because he looks as productive as ever. Could be looking at a nice 25 homer, 20 steal season with something like a 750, 800 OPS. That's exactly what the upside was for Dansby Swanson, and it looks like he's going to hit it well. That Cubs lineup is awesome, and again, very productive player, Dansby Swanson. All right, now moving on, we have a mega tier, and I wanted to put a lot of these guys together in the same tier because this is kind of your last line of defense in a 12-team league. Shortstop, while being a very deep position, falls off quickly after these guys. And again, there's a lot of them there. It's really no excuse to not having a plus shortstop in a 12-team league because there are so many shortstops. But this tier is so wide because I do think it's very flat. So this isn't as much as a ranking as, again, as a tier list, where I think these guys ranked from 12 through 19 can all be somewhat interchangeable based on the settings of your league and just general expectations for them moving forward through the rest of the season. But this tier is Jeremy Pena, Jacob Wilson, Willy Adames, Bo Bichette, Anthony Volpe, Ezekiel Tovar, Mason Wynn, and Xander Bogaerts. Again, a lot of guys and I don't think they're that different from one another. But starting with Pena, it's been a really highly productive season for him so far. He's hitting about 300 and on pace to be a little like a shade better than 2020 guy, homers and steals, maybe like a 22 guy, 23 guy with the 6 homers and 6 steals so far. But the profile itself still isn't like that exciting under the hood. He has done well this year to chase fewer pitches out of the strike zone. He's bumped up his walk rate in a meaningful way, but that bump up in his walk rate is just a 3% guy to a 6% guy. So again, good. We like seeing improvement, but it's nothing really to write home about. He's still not hitting the ball super hard. And again, that plate discipline has just really gone from awful to average, which is good. That's a big deal for a guy like Pena. Makes a lot of contact and still has really good physical tools and is mostly hitting leadoff right now for this Astros team. I just don't really see a genuine tier jump from Pena yet, while again, he's a very productive player now and will likely continue to be a very productive player for the rest of the season. Then we have one of the best stories in baseball so far, Jacob Wilson on the Athletics. And like, wow, old school baseball guy right here. 340 batting average, never strikes out, never walks. This is exactly what the old heads have been dreaming for. And on top of that, he's been a true engine atop the Athletics lineup, playing really good shortstop defense and kind of fueling them in what so far has been a surprising start to the season. Not surprising start to the season if you guys have been watching my videos, because I picked them as my dark horse playoff team all the way back in March. But this A's team is fun, and Wilson's one of the main reasons for it right now. And the biggest thing that's elevated his fantasy value so far this season, it's not that 340 batting average, it's already having 5 home runs. I think if you ask most people heading into the season, they would have said 5 home runs was the expectation for Jacob Wilson for the whole thing. And the fact that he's done that before Memorial Day says a lot about his ceiling and where he can go as a player. But I do have to throw a little bit of cold water on the Jacob Wilson start this season, especially in terms of just pure fantasy value. The quality of contact is just not very good. It's a lot of consistent contact and incredible barrel control that helps him be this player. Again, think about the Luis Arias, Steven Kwan types around the league. But I really don't know how he continues to have a 340 batting average the rest of the season. It's not saying he's not good. Again, I expect Wilson to hit between 280 and 300 the rest of the way. Maybe he hits 5 more home runs. You wind up as a 310 hitter with somewhere like 9 to 12 homers, 10-ish stolen bases. That's a highly productive player. But I think right now there's some people that are kind of conflating Wilson's high batting average for star potential. And maybe he gets there eventually, but until the approach changes and is near bottom of the league bat speed, it's only aimed at contact. I don't know where the ceiling actually is. And when we're doing these rankings, we're thinking about them in our heads from this exact point right now through the end of the season. And from this point on through the end of the season, Wilson's probably, again, a borderline top 12 shortstop, and I don't think anywhere close to a top 10 one, because those guys I mentioned, the other tier above him, Dansby Swanson, Zach Neto especially, I don't know how Wilson jumps them in value at any point this season. Also, he left the Athletics game on Tuesday after getting hit by a pitch in the forearm and is not in their lineup on Wednesday, so stand by to see that injury news for Jacob Wilson. Next up, we have Willy Adames, one of the biggest disappointments in all of fantasy baseball this season, and it's a lot of things we were probably just concerned about with him heading into the year. San Francisco was a tough place to play. Now he has to deliver with that huge contract. The lineup for the Giants this year is not as good as the lineup for the Brewers was last season, and we probably knew he wasn't going to steal as many bases from seeking a big contract to having a big contract. So again, a lot of things kind of take down his ceiling a little bit. But while he started the season horribly, he's been fine over the last month or so. Since April 20th, he has a 770 OPS. That's a totally cool OPS. That's probably more like the Willy Adames that we do expect. But again, I don't think you're getting 25 homers again. You're definitely not getting 20 steals again. He'll play the rest of the season on like a 20 homer, 5 steal pace with, again, an OPS in the mid 700s. Totally fine player, just probably not the player you drafted him to be. Then we have Bo Bichette, who's back to being just totally solid. The batting average is high. Happy he ended his homer drought, because that was getting kind of embarrassing. It was a very long time before he hit a homer. And we're probably looking at a guy who's going to have like 15 homers, maybe 15 steals this season, maybe hit around 280. It's a good player, solid player. That's like 80% of the best versions of Bo Bichette we saw over the last few years. Him, Adames, Pena, and Wilson are probably in a mini tier inside of this tier of guys who have definitely higher floors and adequate ceilings compared to the next guys we're going to talk about. Starting with Anthony Volpe. Volpe's weirdly become one of the most underrated players in the league because he's a really solid shortstop defender, has pretty good power, and has a pretty good on-base percentage. That right there, especially in terms of real-life player, that's awesome. He'll just never be Derek Jeter, and he'll never hit for a high average. So I think the Yankee fans will always hold both of those things against him. But in terms of fantasy baseball, he's done really well so far this season to marry the power production he had as a rookie in 2023 with at least an acceptable on-base percentage and batting average that he had last season. That was what we hoped for from Volpe heading into the season, and he has done that. And the reason he's done that, because he's just decided to swing really, really hard this season. Last year, he never really swung hard. He seemed obsessed with not swinging and missing, shortening up a lot, trying to just make sure he got that bat in the ball. This year, seems like he said, F it. He's like, I'm going to swing hard much more often. And it's helped him be a much more productive player, despite still running a low contact rate. Because if he's hitting the ball hard less often, there's a better chance those balls in play turn into doubles, homers, just more hits in general. That's what's happened. Maybe that contact rate comes home to roost for Volpe. Maybe he is swinging too hard right now, but as of right now, he's productive, and that's okay. Then we have Ezequiel Tovar on the Rockies. Just such fun tools. I really like watching Ezequiel Tovar. He just looks like a ball player in the box. Quick with his hands, great defender, can run, can hit for power. Does a lot of things well. And he has a pretty small sample this season compared to the rest of the guys in this list because he did miss significant significant amount of time with a hip injury, but so far, again, a bit of a small sample. He's hitting the ball harder, has a better contact rate, and overall is swinging less often. That means he's chasing less often, but he was a guy who could probably stand to be a little bit less aggressive, because for his career, Tovar would get into the box and just tell the pitcher, I am taking hacks, try and stop me. He's one of these guys where it's kind of a gut thing. I like Tovar a lot. When I watch Ezequiel Tovar play baseball, I'm like, I like that guy. I like the things he's doing. It's not a lot of data to back up how much I like Tovar. I just get that feeling with him sometimes. Also, because he's a Rocky and plays in Coors Field, he will get a bump in daily leagues where you can manage him day to day and make sure you're starting him in Coors Field and possibly putting him on your bench when he's not. Then we have Mason Wynn in the Cardinals, who at the same time so far this year is level jumping while also kind of being stuck in terms of fantasy value. And again, guys like him are why this tier is so wide, because there are so many acceptable shortstops in fantasy baseball. And he is one of those guys. The difference between him and Jeremy Pena isn't really that tremendous, despite them looking like they're really far away in the rankings. Because again, they're in the same tier together. Really, those guys can flip-flop in a month's time, and I wouldn't even be close to shocked. And when you get back to a guy like Wynn, who never used to hit the ball hard, this year he's hitting the ball harder. It's still not necessarily hard, but he's hitting it harder. That's a big deal for him. It's helping him access more power. And if you look at his bat speed distribution, he's just simply swinging harder more consistently. A big deal when you're trying to access more power. He's also able to access more power because he's pulling more of his fly balls. Again, he's starting to do a lot of the things that we hoped he would do with the physical tools that he has. But with that, he's still kind of stuck in the same spot. He's still like a 15 homer, 250 batting average guy. We hoped heading into the season that Mason Wynn would be more aggressive on the base paths because he's a very fast guy, and he said verbally in the offseason, I want to steal more bases. But so far this year, he's successfully stolen 2 bases and been caught 4 times. You can't be a 33% base stealer guy. Your team's not going to give you the green light anymore, and you're hurting them. So again, 15 homer, 10 to 15 steal, 250 guy. Great ball player. In real life, amazing ball player, and you take into account his defense. But in fantasy baseball, that's still just not a needle mover. And then lastly, in this tier, really the last acceptable starting shortstop, middle infield type guy you'd be comfortable in your utility spot type guy, Xander Bogaerts. I wanted to put him higher because of his body of work and how much the projections still love him. But it's hard to do that because the power is just gone. He's showing really good plate discipline. He's stealing bags. That's kind of fun. But is he ever going to get that slugging percentage back over 400? Where are the doubles? Where's the 35, 40 homer Xander Bogaerts that we used to see and be so excited about in fantasy? If he's only hitting 10 home runs and 25 doubles, how good can he really be? Again, he's in this tier on legacy, on body of work, on projections, but he's someone I'm concerned about, which is why he's in the bottom of this tier. And now lastly, a few guys I want to touch on the last tier here, just guys to mention, definitely below all the guys I've talked about. First up is Geraldo Perdomo. You guys might yell at me for this one, but I really still see the same Geraldo Perdomo I've always seen, despite the really amazing production so far this season. It's a classic sell-high guy. He just never swings. A lot of his fantasy value right now is coming from all the walks he's drawing, and there's still no real power. He has 6 homers right now in the season. I doubt from this point to the end of the season, he even hits 6 more home runs. Great real-life player, amazing defender, great plate discipline. But in terms of fantasy baseball, I don't know. He's definitely a step below all the guys I've already talked about. Then we have the one guy who's very interesting in this tier who I want to give a little bit of time to is Chase Meidroth on the White Sox. The big thing about Meidroth that boosts his fantasy value, he's a multi-position eligibility guy. In most of your leagues, he will be eligible at shortstop, second base, third base. These are very valuable players to keep on the bottom of your roster because if you're in a pinch, you don't really have to make a move if one of your stars gets injured. You can just plug and play Meidroth where he needs to go in the infield. Very helpful. Also for Meidroth, he's an on-base king. He's always shown that ability through the minor leagues. And right now, through the first month or so of his career with the White Sox, he's getting on base a lot. He's hitting for a high average, and he's stealing tons of bases. That's a skill he never really showed in the minor leagues. But as of right now, he could steal around 25 bases, something I did not really expect heading into the season. So again, I'm paying close attention to Meidroth. If anybody in this tier should really be catching your attention for what they can do for the rest of the season, I think it's Meidroth. Then similar to Meidroth, but I think with a little bit less ceiling, we have Josh Smith on the Rangers. He's been the beneficiary of the Corey Seager injuries this season. He's another guy eligible everywhere. The Rangers play him everywhere. He puts the ball in play a good bit. He's not going to hit for much power. He's not going to have much speed, but he's also not a zero in those 2 places. So he's useful. Then JP Crawford, just a solid, regular dude, plays every single day. Good guy to have in a deep league. And lastly, I just wanted to mention him, even though he just went on the injured list, Xavier Edwards. Told you guys in the offseason that I didn't think he was much of a factor at all in points leagues heading into the season, and really has been this year. He's not hitting. He is finally stealing some bases. Still a worthwhile player in rotisserie leagues. But again, just not really productive enough to really move the needle in your points leagues. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. That is the updated for right now shortstop rankings for the end of through the rest of the season for fantasy baseball. Points league specific. So again, if you guys disagree with me, if you guys want to ask me questions about ads, drop, trades, please sound off in the comments down there. I try to get to every single one of your guys' comments. Done a really good job at that so far. Plan to do that in the future. Also some general housekeeping stuff for the channel. It's gonna be a lot of content coming to you guys over Memorial Day weekend, so get excited for that. This video coming out, I'm planning for a waiver wire video to come out on Saturday, and I think that's gonna be a change for the channel, at least for a few weeks. I've been doing my waiver wire videos on Monday, but I know a lot of you guys have your waivers that process Sunday night. So the new goal is going to be put that waiver wire video out for Saturday afternoons. You can use that heading through your weekend. Also after that, I'm going to try to have something for you guys next Tuesday. If not Tuesday, probably next Wednesday, depending how Memorial Day goes. Might be another positional ranking just like this. You guys let me know what position you want to hear about next. Second base, third base, outfield, first base. I'm down to do any of them. Or I might do something like kind of an early season recap piece, something like the 10 big surprises of the fantasy baseball season, 5 guys who've gone up the most, 5 guys who've gone down the most. I don't know, maybe something like that, or another positional ranking. So if you guys have an opinion there, let me know down in the comments what video you want to see next. Again, if you are watching this video and not subscribed to the channel, please click that big black subscribe button down below. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.